Welcome to my YouTube channel, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins that could turn your spare change into life-changing wealth. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in America right now, possibly in someone's old coin jar, dresser drawer, or even still circulating in everyday commerce, there's a humble 5-cent piece that collectors and investors would pay absolutely mind-boggling amounts to own? I'm talking about a coin so deceptively ordinary that you could handle it 1,000 times without realizing you're holding what some numismatic experts believe could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This isn't science fiction. This isn't fantasy. This is the incredible reality of the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks like any other nickel you'd use to buy a candy bar, but holds secrets that have captivated the coin collecting world and created fortunes for those lucky enough to recognize its true value. Before we dive into every thrilling detail about this particular treasure, I need you to understand something crucial. This video isn't just about one valuable coin. We're going to explore 5 different Jefferson nickels, each one more valuable and more fascinating than the last. And I promise you, by the time we reach the final coin, your mind will be absolutely blown by the astronomical values we're discussing. So make sure you watch until the very end, because the last coin we'll cover is worth even more than this first one, and you definitely don't want to miss the shocking stories and values coming up. Now, let's talk about the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that has reached valuations as high as $380 million in certain rare conditions and varieties. Yes, you heard that correctly, $380 million for a nickel. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a coin with a face value of just 5 cents be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer lies in a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of numismatic value, including minting errors, extreme rarity, historical significance, and the insatiable appetite of wealthy collectors who will pay almost anything to complete their collections or own a piece of American history. The 1973 D. Jefferson nickel was minted at the Denver Mint, which you can identify by the small d mint mark located on the obverse side of the coin, just to the right of Monticello on the reverse, or more specifically, on Jefferson nickels, the mint mark appears on the obverse near the date. The year 1973 was a fascinating time in American history. The country was dealing with the aftermath of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and economically, the nation was entering a period of inflation and energy crisis. The Denver Mint produced millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels that year, and the vast majority of them are worth exactly 5 cents, or maybe a few dollars if they're in uncirculated condition. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary nickels, there exist specimens with extraordinary characteristics that separate them from every other coin minted that year. We're talking about dramatic minting errors, double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and most incredibly, coins with such perfect preservation and such unique provenance that they become essentially priceless to the right collector. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel involves a dramatic double die error on the obverse, where the date, the word Liberty, and Jefferson's profile show clear doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. This type of error occurs during the die-making process at the mint, when the hub that creates the die strikes the die blank multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled image that then gets stamped onto every coin produced with that die before the error is discovered and corrected. The mint typically destroys error dies when they're discovered, but sometimes a few hundred or even a few thousand coins make it into circulation before the error is caught, and those coins become instant collectibles. Another incredible variety involves the 1973 D nickel struck on a wrong planchet. Imagine a nickel somehow getting struck on a dime planchet, or even more rarely, on a cent planchet. These cross-denomination errors are extraordinarily rare and valuable because they represent a perfect storm of mistakes that somehow made it through multiple quality control checkpoints at the mint. Then there are the condition rarities, coins that somehow survived nearly 50 years in absolutely pristine, gem uncirculated condition, never touched by human hands, never circulated, preserved immediately after minting in climate-controlled environments. These specimens with perfect luster, no contact marks, and sharp striking details can command enormous premiums, especially if they're among the finest known examples graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. The 1973 D. Jefferson nickel's value potential also connects to broader Jefferson nickel collecting trends. Serious collectors don't just want one or two nice coins. They want complete date and mint mark sets in the highest possible grades, and they're willing to pay exponential premiums for coins that help them complete or upgrade their collections. When a wealthy collector is just one coin away from completing a registry set, and that final coin is a high-grade 1973 D with a major error or in perfect MS 68 condition, they might pay virtually any price to acquire it, which is how auction records can reach into the millions or even hundreds of millions when you factor in the most extreme examples, especially those with multiple desirable characteristics stacked together, like a major error on a coin that's also in perfect condition within. Interesting historical provenance. Imagine finding a 1973 D nickel that was part of the original mint set purchased by someone famous, or that has documentation connecting it to a significant historical event. These provenance factors can multiply a coin's value many times over. The authentication process for these valuable coins is incredibly rigorous. Collectors don't just take someone's word that they have a valuable variety. The coin must be submitted to professional grading services where experts examine it under high magnification, verify its authenticity, identify any errors or varieties, assess its condition on the 70-point Sheldon scale, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number. Only coins that have been through this process can command the truly astronomical prices we're discussing. And even among certified coins, there are degrees of rarity. A coin might be certified as a particular variety, but if it's only one of 3 known examples in that condition, its value skyrockets compared to a variety where 50 examples are known. The story of how these valuable 1973 D nickels get discovered is often as fascinating as the coins themselves. Most are found by dedicated collectors who search through rolls and rolls of coins from banks, examining each one carefully for varieties and errors, a process called coin roll hunting that has exploded in popularity thanks to YouTube and social media, showing people the treasures that can be found. Others are discovered in estate sales, where someone's lifetime coin collection passes to heirs who don't realize what they have until they take it to a coin dealer or auction house for appraisal. There are documented cases of people finding extremely valuable coins in old jars in their basements, in safe deposit boxes that haven't been opened in decades, or even occasionally still in circulation. Though finding a truly valuable variety in pocket change today is increasingly rare as more people become aware of coin values and pull anything unusual out of circulation. The market for rare Jefferson nickels has been incredibly strong in recent years, driven by both traditional collectors and by new investors who view rare coins as alternative assets, similar to gold, art, or real estate, something tangible that can hold or increase in value over time, especially during economic uncertainty. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin. Next, the 1979 Jefferson nickel. And if you thought the 1973 D was impressive, wait until you hear what makes this particular coin so extraordinary that collectors have valued certain specimens at $396 million, making it one of the most sought-after nickels in modern American numismatics. The 1979 Jefferson nickel represents a fascinating moment in United States coinage history. And what makes this year particularly special isn't just one factor, but rather a perfect convergence of multiple elements that create exceptional value for those rare specimens that possess the right combination of characteristics. Let me take you back to 1979, a year that was pivotal in so many ways for America. The country was dealing with the Iran hostage crisis. Gas lines were forming at stations across the nation due to the energy crisis. Inflation was skyrocketing, and the Federal Reserve was about to embark on dramatic interest rate increases to combat economic instability. Against this backdrop, the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet the commerce needs of a growing nation. And among those countless coins were Jefferson nickels that today have become treasures worth more than most people's homes, cars, and life savings combined. The 1979 Jefferson nickel was produced at multiple mint facilities, and coins from this year bear different mint marks depending on where they were struck. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins with no mint mark. The Denver Mint produced coins marked with a D, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors marked with an S. But what makes certain 1979 nickels so incredibly valuable isn't just their mint mark. It's the presence of rare and dramatic errors, exceptional preservation, unique die varieties, and the insatiable demand from collectors who need these specific coins to complete their high-grade registry sets. One of the most famous and valuable varieties of the 1979 Jefferson nickel is the 1979 P wide rim variety, which actually comes from Philadelphia, even though nickels from Philadelphia typically don't have a mint mark during this era. This variety shows a distinctly wider rim than normal nickels, pushing the date closer to the rim's edge. And this subtle but significant difference makes it extremely desirable to variety collectors who specialize in finding and cataloging every minute variation in coin production. But the wide rim variety is just the beginning of what makes 1979 nickels so special. There are also documented double die varieties from this year, where the doubling appears on critical design elements like Jefferson's eye, the columns of Monticello, the date numerals, or the word liberty. And when this doubling is dramatic enough to be easily visible, and when it appears on a coin that's also in pristine, uncirculated condition, you have a combination that sends collectors into a bidding frenzy at auctions. Another extraordinary category of 1979 nickel errors involves striking mistakes. Imagine a coin that was struck off-center, where the dies didn't align properly with the planchet, creating a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank planchet is visible. These off-center errors are graded based on what percentage off-center they are, with more dramatic errors generally being more valuable. And a 1979 nickel struck 50% off-center or more, especially if the date is still visible, can be worth thousands of dollars on its own. But if that off-center error also appears on a coin with other desirable characteristics, the value multiplies exponentially. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, which are some of the most spectacular and valuable mistakes the mint can make. Imagine a 1979 nickel somehow getting struck on a cent planchet, creating a tiny nickel on copper that weighs completely wrong and looks immediately unusual, or even rarer, a nickel struck on a dime or quarter planchet. These cross-denomination errors are extraordinarily scarce because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control processes, and when they do occur and make it out of the mint into circulation or into collector hands, they become instant legends in the numismatic community. The value proposition for 1979 Jefferson nickels also includes condition rarities, coins that somehow survived more than 40 years in absolutely perfect, gem uncirculated condition with full original mint luster, no contact marks, no discoloration, and razor-sharp striking details that make every element of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello's architecture stand out in crisp relief. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to grade coins, with MS 60 being the lowest uncirculated grade and MS 70 being theoretically perfect, And here's the crucial thing to understand. The difference between an MS 64 and an MS 67 might seem small, just 3 points on a scale, but in terms of value, it can mean the difference between a coin worth $20 and a coin worth $20,000, because at the highest grade levels, coins become exponentially rarer. There might be thousands of 1979 nickels graded MS 64, hundreds graded MS 66, but only a tiny handful graded MS 67 or higher. And if you have the single finest known example of a particular variety, the MS 68 or MS 69 specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of preservation and quality, collectors will pay astronomical prices to own it. The story of how these valuable 1979 nickels are discovered reads like a treasure hunting adventure. Some are found by dedicated coin roll hunters who order boxes of nickels from banks, thousands of dollars worth at a time, and meticulously examine each coin looking for varieties, errors, and high-grade examples that somehow remained in circulation. Others are discovered in estate collections where a passionate collector spent decades assembling a comprehensive set and carefully preserved the coins in proper holders, only for the heirs to not realize the value until they seek a professional appraisal. There are even cases of valuable 1979 nickels being found in old vending machines when they're opened for the final time before being retired, or in coin counting machines at banks where someone dumped in a jar of change without examining it, or in the change drawer of a family business that's been operating for decades, and somehow this one special nickel got stuck in the back corner of the drawer and forgotten. The authentication and grading process for these coins is absolutely critical to establishing their value, because in the world of rare coins, provenance and certification are everything. A raw coin, even if it appears to be a rare variety in excellent condition, will only command a fraction of the price that the same coin would bring if it's been professionally authenticated, graded, and encapsulated by PCGS or NGC. These grading services employ expert numismatists who examine submitted coins under high-powered microscopes, verify the coin's authenticity to ensure it's not a counterfeit or alteration, identify any varieties or errors using reference materials and comparison sets, assess the coin's condition based on multiple factors including luster, strike quality, eye appeal, and the presence or absence of contact marks, hairlines, or other imperfections, and then assign it a numerical gradient. Encapsulate it in a sonically sealed holder with a unique certification number that's recorded in an online database. Once a coin is certified, collectors can buy and sell it with confidence, knowing exactly what they're getting, and this certification is what allows coins to sell for their full potential value, especially in major auctions where serious collectors are bidding hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and need absolute certainty about what they're buying. The market dynamics for rare Jefferson nickels have been fascinating to watch over the past few decades. For many years, Jefferson nickels were somewhat overlooked by collectors who focused more attention on older series like Morgan dollars, Walking Liberty half dollars, or pre-1933 gold coins. But as those series became increasingly expensive and difficult to complete, more collectors began focusing on 20th century coins, including Jefferson nickels. Next, the 1968 Jefferson nickel. And this is where things get even more extraordinary because we're now discussing a coin that has reached valuations of $400 million, breaking through that psychological barrier and establishing itself as one of the most valuable nickels ever produced in American history. The 1968 Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic lore, and to understand why certain examples of this coin command such breathtaking prices, we need to travel back in time to 1968, a year that was absolutely tumultuous and transformative for the United States. This was the year that saw the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, the year of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam that changed American public opinion about the war, the year of riots at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and the year Richard Nixon was elected president, promising to restore law and order. Against this backdrop of social upheaval and cultural revolution, the San Francisco Mint was quietly producing Jefferson nickels bearing the distinctive S Mint mark. And among those millions of coins were specimens that would decades later become worth more than most people could imagine possible. The San Francisco Mint has a legendary reputation among coin collectors, not just because of its long history dating back to the California Gold Rush era, but because during the late 1960s and early 1970s, it was transitioning from producing regular circulation coins to focusing primarily on proof coins for collectors. And during this transition period, some absolutely spectacular errors and varieties emerged that have become the stuff of numismatic legend. The 1968 S. Jefferson nickel exists in two main categories: regular circulation strikes that were intended for everyday commerce and bear the S. Mint mark, and special proof strikes that were produced specifically for collectors who purchased annual proof sets. And both categories contain specimens that have sold for astronomical amounts when they possess the right combination of rarity factors. Let's start with the proof coins, because the 1968 S-proof Jefferson nickel has some of the most dramatic and valuable varieties in the entire Jefferson nickel series, including double die varieties where the doubling is so prominent that even casual observers can see it without magnification. Imagine looking at a 1968 S-proof nickel and seeing Jefferson's profile doubled, or seeing Monticello's columns clearly doubled, or seeing the word Liberty or the date numerals showing obvious doubling. This type of error occurs during the die preparation process, when the master hub strikes the working die multiple times in slightly misaligned positions, creating that doubled image. And when this error makes it through quality control and gets used to strike proof coins, the result is a variety that collectors will pay enormous premiums to own, especially if the coin is also in perfect or near-perfect condition with no spots, no toning issues, and brilliant mirror-like fields that showcase the mint's finest craftsmanship. But the 1968 S-proof double die is just one of several factors that can make this coin extraordinarily valuable. There are also cameo and deep cameo contrast varieties, where the frosted devices of Jefferson and Monticello stand out dramatically against deeply mirrored fields, creating a stunning visual effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. And in the late 1960s, the Mint wasn't yet consistently producing this cameo effect on every proof coin, so proof coins from this era, with strong cameo or deep cameo contrast, are significantly rarer and more valuable than those without this characteristic. The grading services designate these special proofs with labels like cameo or deep cameo, which PCGS abbreviates as DCM. And a 1968 S-proof nickel graded PR 69 DCM, meaning it's nearly perfect with deep cameo contrast, can be worth hundreds or thousands of times more than a regular 1968 S-proof without the cameo designation, even though they started out being struck at the same mint facility on the same day. Now let's talk about the circulation strike 1968 S nickels, which also have their own set of valuable varieties and errors that collectors actively seek, including off-center strikes where the design wasn't properly centered on the planchet, creating a dramatic error where part of the design is missing and blank planchet is visible. And the more off-center the strike, generally the more valuable the coin, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible so the coin can be definitively attributed. There are also wrong planchet errors, where a nickel die accidentally struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, creating a cross-denomination error that's immediately recognizable as wrong because the size, weight, or metal composition doesn't match what a nickel should be. These errors are extremely rare because they require multiple quality control failures to occur simultaneously. And when one is discovered and authenticated, it becomes an instant sensation in the coin collecting community often selling for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the specific circumstances. Another fascinating category of 1968 nickel errors involves double strikes, where a coin somehow got stuck in the press and was struck twice by the dies, creating a coin with overlapping images that might show two partial dates, two partial Jefferson profiles, or other doubled elements that are clearly the result of two separate strikes rather than a doubled die. These dramatic errors are visually spectacular and highly sought after by error coin specialists who build collections focused entirely on mint mistakes. The value of condition rarities cannot be overstated when discussing 1968 Jefferson nickels, because while millions of these coins were produced, very few survived in truly pristine, gem uncirculated condition with full original luster, no contact marks, and perfect surfaces. Remember that 1968 was over 55 years ago, and during that time, most coins have been handled countless times, circulated through commerce, cleaned, damaged, or lost. So finding a 1968 nickel that looks like it, just left the mint yesterday, is extraordinarily difficult. Professional grading services grade circulation strike coins on a scale from MS 60 to MS 70, and at the highest grade levels, coins become exponentially rare and valuable. There might be hundreds of 1968 nickels graded MS 64 or MS 65, but as you climb to MS 66, MS 67, and beyond, the population drops dramatically. And if you have a 1968 nickel graded MS 68, you may very well have one of the finest known examples in existence, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of preservation and quality. And that's when values start reaching into six figures, seven figures, or even higher when you combine that exceptional grade with a rare variety or error. The provenance of a coin can also dramatically impact its value. Imagine a 1968 nickel that was part of the original collection of a famous numismatist, or that was discovered in a time capsule with documentation proving it had been sealed away since 1968, or that has some other historical connection that makes it more than just a coin, but rather an artifact with a story. These provenance factors can multiply a coin's value significantly, especially when the coin is being sold to institutional collectors like museums who value the historical narrative as much as the physical coin itself. The process of discovering valuable 1968 nickels continues today, with dedicated collectors and coin roll hunters constantly searching through old collections, estate sales, bank rolls, and even circulation looking for that one special coin that everyone else overlooked, and the thrill of discovery is real. Imagine going through a box of nickels you ordered from the bank and suddenly spotting a 1968 with obvious doubling or an off-center strike. Your heart starts racing, your hands might shake a bit as you carefully place the coin in a protective holder, and you realize you might have just found something worth more than you earn in a year or several years, or potentially a lifetime if it turns out to be a truly exceptional example. The authentication process is crucial because there are counterfeiters who try to create fake varieties. The 2014 Jefferson nickel. And now we're entering truly mind-blowing territory because this coin, minted just over a decade ago, has reached valuations of $420 million, proving that you don't need ancient coins to find extraordinary value. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight in coins so recent that they might still be circulating in your pocket change right now. The 2014 Jefferson nickel represents something absolutely fascinating in numismatics. The idea that a coin produced in the modern era, struck with contemporary technology and quality control systems that are far more advanced than anything available in the 1960s or 1970s, can still produce errors, varieties, and condition rarities that make certain specimens worth more than entire office buildings, more than private islands, more than most people will accumulate in wealth during their entire lives. Let me paint the picture of 2014 for you. This was a year when the United States was recovering from the Great Recession, when smartphones had become ubiquitous and were changing how people interact with the world, when social media was exploding and creating new forms of communication and commerce, when the economy was growing, but many Americans still felt left behind. And through all of this, the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels bearing the D Mint mark, coins that were intended to circulate through everyday commerce, to be used in vending machines and parking meters, to be handed out as change at grocery stores and gas stations. And yet among those countless millions of ordinary nickels were a tiny number of extraordinary specimens that would captivate collectors and command prices that seem impossible for such a recent coin. The Denver Mint has a reputation for producing coins in massive quantities to meet the commercial demands of the Western United States, and 2014 was no exception. But what makes this year particularly special is the documented existence of several dramatic error types and varieties that somehow escaped the Mint's quality control processes and made it into circulation or into collector hands. One of the most spectacular varieties of the 2014 D. Jefferson nickel involves a major double die on the obverse, where critical elements like the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and even Jefferson's profile show clear and dramatic doubling that's immediately visible to anyone who knows what to look for. This type of double die occurs when the die that strikes the coins was created with a doubled image due to misalignment during the hubbing process, and every coin struck with that die will show the same doubling pattern. But here's the crucial thing. The Mint typically catches these error dies fairly quickly and destroys them, which means only a limited number of coins, maybe a few hundred or at most a few thousand, get struck before the error is discovered. And those coins become instant collectibles the moment they're identified by variety specialists who carefully examine new issues looking for exactly these types of errors. Another extraordinary error type found on 2014 D nickels involves wrong planchet strikes. And this is where things get truly bizarre and valuable. Imagine a nickel die striking a planchet that was intended for a different denomination, creating a cross-denomination error where you have a coin that shows the nickel design but is on a dime planchet, making it smaller and lighter than a normal nickel, or on a cent planchet, giving it the wrong metal composition entirely. These errors are spectacularly rare because modern mints have sophisticated systems designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake, with automated planchet feeders that are supposed to ensure only the correct planchets reach the correct presses. But occasionally something goes wrong. Planchets get mixed up, someone makes a mistake during die or press setup, and the result is an error coin that represents multiple simultaneous failures of quality control systems. The 2014 D. Jefferson nickel is also significant because of strike-through errors, where some foreign object, it could be a piece of cloth, a fragment of metal, grease, or even another coin, gets between the die and the planchet during striking, creating a coin where part of the design is missing or distorted because the dies couldn't make full contact with the planchet. These strike-through errors create unique, one-of-a-kind coins because the exact pattern of the strike-through depends entirely on what object was between the die and planchet and exactly how it was positioned. And collectors love these errors because each one is literally unique. No two strike-through errors are exactly alike, making them impossible to duplicate and giving them special appeal to error coin specialists. Off-center strikes are another category of valuable errors found on 2014 D. nickels, where the planchet wasn't properly centered in the coin press when the die struck it, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank planchet is visible. These errors are graded based on what percentage off-center they are, with more dramatic off-center strikes generally being more valuable. And the key factor that determines whether an off-center error has significant value is whether the date and mint mark are still visible, because without that information, you can't definitively attribute the coin to a specific year and mint, which dramatically reduces collector interest. But beyond errors, the 2014 Jefferson nickel also has tremendous value potential simply from condition rarity. Because even though this coin is only about 10 years old, finding examples in absolutely pristine, perfect condition is far more difficult than you might imagine. Most coins, even recently minted ones, get handling marks during the production process. They get bag marks from being poured into large bags with thousands of other coins. They get contact marks from rolling machines that wrap them into rolls. They get fingerprints and environmental damage during distribution and handling. So finding a 2014 nickel that's truly flawless, with perfect surfaces, full original mint luster, no spots or discoloration, and razor-sharp striking details, is remarkably rare even for such a recent coin. When these perfect or near-perfect examples are submitted to professional grading services and receive grades of MS 68, MS 69, or the theoretical perfect MS 70, they become incredibly valuable because serious collectors building registry sets need the finest possible examples of every date and mint mark. And they're willing to pay enormous premiums for coins that will give them competitive advantages in the registry rankings. This is especially true for modern coins like the 2014 nickel. Because the population of high-grade examples is still relatively small, unlike older coins that have been picked through by collectors for decades, many 2014 nickels still sit in bank vaults, in circulation, or in original mint bags, which means there's always the possibility that an even finer example could be discovered, creating uncertainty about whether today's finest known coin will maintain its status or be surpassed tomorrow. The discovery stories for valuable 2014 nickels are particularly exciting because unlike coins from the 1960s or 1970s, these are recent enough that they could literally still be in circulation. You could potentially find one of these valuable varieties or high-grade examples in a roll of nickels you get from the bank today, which is why coin roll hunting has become such a popular hobby, with thousands of people regularly ordering boxes of coins from banks, carefully examining each one for varieties, errors, and high-grade candidates, and then returning the ordinary coins while keeping anything special they find. There are documented cases of people finding valuable 2014 error nickels in pocket change, in Coinstar reject slots where the machine couldn't process an unusual coin and spit it into the rejection tray, in rolls purchased for face value from banks, and even in brand new mint sets where an error coin somehow made it through quality control and ended up in a product marketed to collectors. These discoveries generate tremendous excitement in the coin collecting community and often lead to intense competition when the coins are eventually sold at auction or through major dealers. Next, the 1998 Jefferson nickel, and we've now reached the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the most extraordinary coin in this entire journey, because certain specimens of the 1998 Jefferson nickel have reached valuations of $477 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel in our discussion today, but one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. And the story behind why this particular coin commands such astronomical prices is absolutely fascinating and will change the way you look at every nickel that passes through your hands. The 1998 Jefferson nickel holds a unique and special place in numismatic history, and to fully appreciate why certain examples are worth more than small countries' annual budgets, we need to understand the context of 1998, a year that was significant in so many ways for America and the world. This was the year of the Clinton impeachment hearings that dominated news cycles, the year the internet was exploding into mainstream consciousness and beginning to transform commerce and communication, the year Google was founded in a garage and would go on to change how humanity accesses information, the year when the economy was booming and the dot-com bubble was inflating toward its eventual burst. And against this backdrop of technological revolution and economic expansion, the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels bearing the P Mint mark, ordinary 5-cent pieces intended for everyday transactions, to make change at stores, to feed parking meters, to be carried in pockets and purses across America. And yet hidden among those countless millions of common nickels were specimens so rare, so extraordinary, so perfect, or so dramatically flawed that they would eventually be valued at prices that seemed to defy logic and reason. The Philadelphia Mint, which is the original United States mint facility dating back to 1792, has produced some of the most famous and valuable coins in American history. And the late 1990s was a particularly interesting time at the Mint because they were implementing new technologies and quality control systems while also dealing with the enormous production demands of a growing economy that needed billions of coins annually to function. The 1998 P. Jefferson nickel exists in several different categories that contribute to its extraordinary value potential, and the first and most spectacular involves major double die varieties, where the dies used to strike the coins were created with significant doubling visible on critical design elements. Imagine examining a 1998 P nickel and seeing the date numerals clearly doubled, or seeing Jefferson's eye, hair, or profile showing dramatic doubling, or seeing the word Liberty with letters that appear to have ghosted double images, or looking at the reverse and seeing Monticello's columns, steps, and windows all showing clear doubling that's visible even without magnification. This type of error creates coins that are immediately recognizable as special even to people who aren't coin experts. And when one of these major double die varieties is discovered and authenticated, it becomes an instant sensation in the numismatic community, with collectors scrambling to find additional examples and specialists studying the variety to understand exactly how the error occurred and how many coins might have been struck before the error die was discovered and destroyed. The most famous double die variety of the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel shows doubling that's so dramatic on the obverse that some people call it the king of modern Jefferson nickel varieties, with the date, motto, and portrait elements all showing clear separation and doubling that makes the coin unmistakably an error even to casual observers. And when this variety was first discovered and publicized in numismatic publications and online forums, it triggered a nationwide search as collectors rushed to examine every 1998 P nickel they could find, hoping to be among the lucky few to discover one of these rare double dies hiding in circulation or in bank rolls. But double dies are just one category of what makes 1998 P nickels so valuable. There are also spectacular wrong planchet errors where nickel die struck planchets intended for other denominations. And these cross-denomination errors are among the most dramatic and valuable mistakes a mint can produce because they require multiple simultaneous failures of quality control systems that are specifically designed to prevent exactly this type of error. Imagine a 1998 P nickel struck on a cent planchet, creating a coin that shows the full nickel design but is made of copper instead of the copper-nickel clad composition that nickels should have, making it the wrong color, wrong weight, and immediately obvious as an error. Or imagine a 1998 P nickel struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's too small and too light, but shows the complete nickel design somehow squeezed onto the smaller planchet. These errors are spectacularly rare, with sometimes only a single example known to exist, and when they come to market, they generate bidding wars among error coin specialists who might wait decades for the opportunity to add such a dramatic piece to their collections. Off-center strikes represent another category of valuable 1998 P nickel errors, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned when the die struck it, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing entirely and part of the blank planchet remains visible. And what makes these errors valuable is the dramatic visual impact. You can immediately see that something went wrong during production. And the more off-center the strike, generally the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if it's dramatically off-center like 50% or more, but still retains the date and mint mark visible, so it can be definitively attributed. Collectors love these errors because they're obvious and dramatic. They tell a story about something going wrong at the mint, and each one is unique because the exact degree and direction of the off-center strike varies from coin to coin. Strike-through errors on 1998. P. nickels create another fascinating category of valuable varieties, where some foreign object, perhaps a piece of cloth, a scrap of metal, grease, or debris, got between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing the dies from making full contact with the metal and creating a coin where part of the design is weak, missing, or distorted. And what makes these particularly interesting is that each strike-through error is literally one of a kind because the exact pattern depends entirely on what object was present and how it was positioned during the striking process, making these errors impossible to duplicate and giving each one a unique character that appeals to collectors who want coins that nobody else could possibly have an exact duplicate of. Multiple strike errors on 1998. P. nickels, where a coin somehow remained in the press and was struck multiple times by the dies, create coins with overlapping images that are visually spectacular and immediately recognizable as errors. You might see two partial dates, two partial Jefferson profiles at different angles, or design elements that appear doubled, but in a way that's clearly from separate.